So are you two actually happy together, or is this all just an elaborate performance? My sister-in-law Victoria asked at the Harper family reunion, her wine glass already half empty at 2 in the afternoon. The question hung in the humid August air like a bad smell. 23 relatives suddenly found their potato salad fascinating. My wife Marta laughed that practiced laugh she'd perfected over our 18 years of marriage. "Oh God, I regret this marriage daily," she said, gesturing dramatically with her mimosa. "Every single morning I wake up and think, what the hell was I thinking?" The family chuckled nervously. Uncle Pete shifted in his lawn chair. Cousin Danny's kids stopped running around the backyard pool. I looked up from my burger, deadpan as a funeral director. "Me too. That's why I'm ending it." The laughter started, then died like a car engine running out of gas. Marta's smile froze. Victoria's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "What?" Marta's voice cracked slightly. "You heard me." I took another bite of my burger, chewed slowly. "If you regret it daily, and I regret it daily, seems like we're finally agreeing on something for the first time in years." The silence stretched until little Emma started crying somewhere near the kiddie pool. That broke the spell. Everyone started talking at once, nervous laughter, someone suggesting we play horseshoes. But Marta's eyes stayed locked on mine. For the first time in months, she was actually looking at me instead of through me. "My name is Evan Harper. I'm 49, a finance manager at Midwest Industrial Supply, and apparently I've been living a lie for the better part of 2 decades. The funny thing is, I didn't even know it until 3 weeks ago when I found the credit card statement. You know that moment when your whole world shifts sideways? When everything you thought you knew suddenly looks different, like someone adjusted the contrast on your life? Mine happened on a Tuesday morning while Marta was in the shower, singing some pop song I didn't recognize. Victoria Lingerie Boutique, $347.82. Romano's Fine Dining, $156.43. Sunset Lake Resort, $892. Right. Victoria Lingerie Boutique, 4 charges in 2 weeks. The problem? We hadn't been to Romano's together in 6 months. I'd never heard of Sunset Lake Resort. And Marta hadn't worn anything from Victoria's Secret for me since Obama was president. I sat there in my kitchen, coffee growing cold, listening to my wife sing in the shower, and realized I was probably the last person in my marriage to know what was actually happening in my marriage. The detective work started small. Casual questions about her work schedule. "How was that client dinner Tuesday?" When I knew damn well she'd told me she was working late on quarterly reports, checking the mileage on her car, looking at our phone bill. Jake Turnbull. That name kept showing up. Text messages at weird hours, phone calls during lunch breaks. Jake from T-Bold Advertising, where Marta worked as a senior account executive. "He's just covering for me on the Morrison account," she'd say when I asked. "You know how demanding that client is." Sure, the Morrison account that required weekend trips to lakeside resorts and expensive lingerie consultations. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperate times and all that, I used the Find My Phone feature we'd set up last year when Marta kept losing her device. Tracked her to places that definitely weren't T-Bold Advertising. A condo complex on the north side, that same lakeside resort, a jewelry store where, according to her credit card, she'd bought a men's watch for $400. My birthday isn't until December. Jake's, according to his very public Facebook profile, was last month. The really pathetic part? I kept hoping I was wrong. Kept making excuses. Maybe Jake was gay and needed a woman's opinion on lingerie for his boyfriend. Maybe the lakeside resort was a company retreat she forgot to mention. Maybe the watch was an early Christmas gift for me and she was just really, really organized this year. But then came the pregnancy test. I found it in her purse while looking for antacids. 2 pink lines, clear as day. We'd been trying to have another kid for 3 years. Well, I thought we'd been trying. Turns out Marta had been trying, just not with me. See, here's the thing about being married for 18 years. You develop patterns, rhythms. I knew when Marta was ovulating better than she did. I knew her cycle, her moods, her timing, and I knew with mathematical certainty that we hadn't had love during her fertile window in over 4 months. But somebody had. So there I was at the Harper family reunion, watching my wife laugh with her sister Victoria, the same Victoria who'd been encouraging Marta's girls' weekends and networking events. and I realized something liberating. I was done pretending. "Evan, you can't be serious," Marta hissed as we walked to the car after the party. The sun was setting, painting the sky the color of a bruise. That was completely inappropriate. Was it? I unlocked the car doors. More inappropriate than spending our anniversary weekend at a lakeside resort with Jake while telling me you were at a marketing conference in Detroit? She stopped walking. "How did you—" "Credit card statement. Also, Detroit doesn't have lakeside resorts, genius." Marta's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Surprise, anger, calculation, then back to anger. "You've been spying on me?" "Spying," I laughed, and it felt good. When was the last time I'd actually laughed? "Marta, you used our joint credit card to buy lingerie for your boyfriend. That's not spying, that's bookkeeping." She got in the car, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. We drove home in silence, but it wasn't the comfortable silence of a long marriage. It was the silence of two people who'd finally stopped pretending they didn't hate each other. Our house looked exactly the same as always. Modest, two-story colonial, small front yard, basketball hoop in the driveway that our kids Ross and Amelia had outgrown years ago. But walking up the front steps felt like entering a crime scene. "We need to talk," Marta said as soon as we were inside. "No kidding." I loosened my tie, sat down in my recliner. "Let's start with Jake Turnbull." Her face went white. "Evan, is the baby his?" The question hung between us like a loaded tool. Marta opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Yes." One word, 3 letters. 18 years of marriage, reduced to a single syllable. I nodded slowly. "How long? Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She sat down on the couch, suddenly looking older than her 46 years. 8 months, 8 months. While I was working overtime to pay for her networking dinners. While I was researching fertility specialists because we couldn't get pregnant. While I was planning our anniversary trip to Napa that she canceled because of work commitments. "Are you in love with him?" I asked. "I don't know." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger, just a strange sense of relief. "Maybe, I think so." "Well, that's something, I guess." I stood up. "I'm going to pack a bag." "Where are you going?" I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, sitting on our couch in our living room, pregnant with another man's child, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. "Somewhere that isn't here," I said. "We'll figure out the rest later." But as I walked upstairs to pack, my mind was already working, calculating, planning. Because here's the thing about being a finance manager. You learn to think several steps ahead. You learn to anticipate problems and prepare solutions. And Marta had just created a very big problem that was going to require a very creative solution. And the Marriott in downtown Cleveland wasn't exactly luxury, but it was better than sleeping in my own bed next to a woman carrying another man's child. I'd checked in under my own name, paid with my own credit card, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed. Text from Marta. "We need to talk about this rationally." I deleted it without responding. Another buzz. "The kids are asking questions." Ross was 22, finishing his last semester at Ohio State. Amelia was 19, home from community college for the summer. They were adults. They could handle their mother's poor life choices. I ordered room service and opened my laptop. Time for some research. Jake Turnbull wasn't hard to find. LinkedIn profile, Facebook, Instagram. The man had no sense of privacy. 38 years old, senior creative director at T-Bold Advertising. Graduated from Miami University, played intramural soccer, liked craft beer and hiking. And he was married, Catherine Kate Turnbull, née Morrison. 35, elementary school teacher, 2 kids, Sophie 8 and Michael 6. Her Facebook was a shrine to family life. Soccer games, school plays, family vacations to Disney World. Poor Kate had no idea her husband was playing house with my wife. I scrolled through months of photos. Jake at Sophie's soccer game in April. The same weekend Marta told me she was working a trade show in Columbus. Jake and Kate at their anniversary dinner in May, while Marta was supposedly having girls' night with Victoria. The man was juggling 2 families, and from the looks of his social media, he was pretty good at it, but not good enough. I picked up my phone and dialed information. Cleveland, Ohio. Catherine Turnbull on Maple Street. The phone rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. "Hello? Hi, is this Kate Turnbull?" "Yes, who's this?" I took a breath. "My name is Evan Harper. I think we need to talk about our spouses. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, what? Your husband Jake and my wife Marta. They've been having an affair for 8 months. She's pregnant with his child. More silence. I could hear children playing in the background, a TV somewhere. I think you have the wrong number, Kate said finally. Jake Turnbull, 38, works at T-Bold Advertising, drives a blue Honda Accord, license plate JTB 4042. A sharp intake of breath. How do you know his license plate? Because I followed him to Sunset Lake Resort 2 weeks ago. He was with my wife. They checked in as Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, but they paid with Jake's credit card. This is insane. But her voice was shaking now. Jake wouldn't. Kate, I'm going to text you some photos. Look at them, then call me back. I hung up and sent her 3 pictures I'd taken during my lakeside surveillance mission. Jake and Marta holding hands walking into the resort. Jake and Marta on the balcony of their room. Jake's car parked in our driveway at 2 in the afternoon last Tuesday while I was at work. My phone rang 5 minutes later. Where are you? Kate's voice was different now, harder. Cleveland. Marriott downtown. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up. Kate Turnbull was smaller than I'd expected from her photos, maybe 5'4" with shoulder-length brown hair and the kind of tired eyes that come from raising 2 kids and teaching elementary school. She sat across from me in the hotel bar, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was an anchor. How long have you known? She asked. 3 weeks. You? About 30 minutes. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. God, I'm stupid. All those late nights, weekend conferences, business trips. I actually felt sorry for him working so hard. Join the club. I was researching fertility specialists while he was getting my wife pregnant. Kate flinched. She's really pregnant? Saw the test myself, due in February, if my math's right. Jesus. She drained her coffee cup. What do we do now? That was the question, wasn't it? The scorned spouses, sitting in a hotel bar, plotting what came next. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to burn his life down. The words came out flat, matter of fact. I want everyone to know what he did. His friends, his co-workers, his family. I want him to feel as humiliated as I feel right now. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Kate, I think we're going to get along just fine. We talked for 2 hours, made plans. Kate was smarter than I'd given her credit for, and angrier than I'd expected. Turned out Jake had cheated before. A brief thing with a neighbor 3 years ago that Kate had forgiven because of the kids. Fool me once, she said as we shook hands in the parking lot. Shame on him, I finished. Fool me twice. The drive back to my house, the house where Marta lived, took 40 minutes. Long enough to plan phase 1 of what I was already thinking of as the Turnbull Project. Jake's car was in my driveway. I parked on the street and walked up to the front door like I lived there. Which, technically, I still did. The door was unlocked. I could hear voices from the kitchen. Marta's and a man's I didn't recognize, but assumed was Jake's. Told him we needed to talk rationally, Marta was saying, but he just stormed out like a child. Maybe this is for the best, Jake replied. We can finally be together openly. It's not that simple. There's the house, the kids, the divorce. And what about Kate? Kate doesn't need to know anything until we figure this out. I walked into the kitchen. Jake Turnbull looked exactly like his photos. Tall, athletic, the kind of guy who probably peaked in college and spent the rest of his life trying to recapture that feeling. He was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking coffee from my favorite mug. Hi, honey. I'm home, I said. Marta jumped like she'd been electrocuted. Jake started to stand, then sat back down, clearly unsure of the protocol for meeting your pregnant mistress's husband. Evan, Marta said, we were just having coffee in my kitchen while discussing how to hide your affair from Jake's wife. I opened the refrigerator, pulled out a beer. Don't mind me, I just came back for some clothes. Look, man, Jake started. I know this is awkward. Awkward? I opened my beer, took a long pull. Jake, right? Jake Turnbull, married to Kate, 2 kids, Sophie and Michael. His face went pale. How do you know about your family? Same way I know about your credit card charges, your work schedule, and your license plate number. I'm thorough like that. Marta was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You investigated him? I investigated both of you. Did you know Jake's been cheating on Kate for years? There was a neighbor named Jessica Morrison back in 2021. Lasted about 6 months before Kate found out. Jake stood up so fast his chair fell over. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a screenshot I'd taken from a local Facebook gossip group. Jessica Morrison posted about her affair with a married advertising executive in the Lakewood Moms group. Didn't mention names, but the timeline matches perfectly with those weekend trips you told Kate were client meetings. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. You're lying, Jake said, but his voice cracked. Am I? Why don't we call Kate and ask her? I started dialing. She's probably wondering where you are right now anyway. Evan, stop. Marta grabbed for my phone. This isn't helping anyone, isn't it? I held the phone out of reach. Jake, did you tell Marta about Jessica? About the other women? Or did you let her think she was special? Jake's face had gone from pale to green. There weren't any other women. Bees. I scrolled through more screenshots. Amanda Chen from your yoga class, spring 2022. Sarah Williams from that marketing conference in Chicago, fall to 2. Should I keep going? Marta was staring at Jake now, and I could see the wheels turning. The realization that she wasn't his first affair probably wouldn't be his last. Those didn't mean anything, Jake said desperately. Marta, you have to believe me. What we have is different. Different how? I asked. Because she's pregnant? Because you actually used her name this time instead of checking into hotels as Mr. and Mrs. Smith? That's enough. Jake lunged toward me, but I was ready for it. Stepped aside, let him stumble past me into the counter. Careful there, champ. Don't want to hurt yourself before Kate gets here. Kate's coming here? Marta's voice was barely a whisper. Should be any minute now. I texted her the address. I checked my watch. She's bringing some friends, too. Moral support, you know. That was a lie, but Jake didn't need to know that. I have to go. Jake was already moving toward the door. Marta, I'll call you later. Will you? I called after him. Because Kate's planning to have a conversation with your boss tomorrow. Something about company policy regarding affairs with clients. T-Bowl does business with Marta's company, right? Might be considered a conflict of interest. Jake stopped in the doorway. You can't prove anything, can't I? I held up my phone again. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, text messages, photos, plus Kate's testimony, Marta's pregnancy test, and about 6 months' worth of credit card statements. Think that's enough for HR? He left without another word. I heard his car start, tires squeal as he backed out of the driveway. Marta was crying now, big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. How could you do this to me? Do what? Tell the truth? Destroy everything, ruin my life. I finished my beer, set the empty bottle on the counter. Marta, you destroyed everything the first time you slept with Jake. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. The baby isn't my problem. The words came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't take them back. You made your choice 8 months ago. Now you get to live with the consequences. I walked upstairs, packed a suitcase with enough clothes for a week. When I came back down, Marta was still sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Where are you going? She asked. Back to the hotel. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers. Evan, please. We can work this out. Go to counseling. Figure things out. No. I stopped at the front door. We can't. You're pregnant with another man's child, Marta. There's no coming back from that. As I drove away, I could see her in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway of our house, looking lost and broken. I should have felt sorry for her. I didn't. Kate Turnbull was a woman of her word. By Thursday morning, Jake's life was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. It started with a Facebook post in the Lakewood Moms group, the same group where Jessica Morrison had aired her dirty laundry 3 years earlier. Kate's post was a masterpiece of suburban passive aggression. Ladies, I need advice. Just discovered my husband of 12 years has been having an affair with a client from his advertising agency. She's pregnant with his child. Do I tell the kids first or his boss? Asking for a friend. Within 2 hours, the post had 47 comments and 23 shares. By noon, it had migrated to 3 other local Facebook groups and someone's Instagram story. Jake called me at 1:30 p.m. You son of a witch, he said without preamble. Do you have any idea what you've done? I was sitting in my hotel room eating a turkey sandwich and watching the social media wildfire spread in real time. I didn't do anything, Jake. Kate posted about her own marriage, freedom of speech, and all that. She didn't mention names. Didn't need to. Your mutual friends connected the dots pretty quickly. I scrolled through the comments on Kate's post. Looks like your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, recognized Marta's car in your driveway. And someone from your office saw you two at Romano's last month. This is maltreatment. This is consequences. I took another bite of my sandwich. How's work going, by the way? The silence stretched long enough that I thought he'd hung up. My boss wants to see me tomorrow morning, he said finally. Yikes. That doesn't sound good. Something about company policy regarding client relationships? You called him. I didn't call anyone, but Kate might have. Or maybe someone from the Lakewood Moms group knows someone who works at T-Bold. Social media is a small world, Jake. He hung up. My phone rang again immediately. Marta this time. Evan, you have to make this stop. Make what stop? The Facebook posts, the gossip, all of it. Victoria called me crying because people are messaging her asking if it's true about me and Jake. Victoria. Marta's sister. The one who'd been encouraging all those girls' nights and networking events. The one who'd asked about our marriage at the family reunion. What did you tell Victoria? I asked. The truth. That yes, I made a mistake, but you're making it worse by involving everyone else. I'm not involving anyone. Kate posted about her own situation. If people are drawing conclusions about you and Jake, maybe that's because you weren't as discreet as you thought. People are calling me a homewrecker, aren't you? Another silence. Then, I want to come home. It's not your home anymore, Marta. I filed the divorce papers this morning. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can. The house is in my name, has been since we bought it. You might want to call a lawyer. She hung up. I went back to monitoring social media. The story was spreading beyond Facebook now. Someone had posted about it on Reddit's relationship advice forum. A local gossip blog had picked it up. Jake's company softball team's group chat was apparently going wild, according to a screenshot someone had shared in one of the Facebook groups. By Friday morning, Jake Turnbull was Cleveland's most famous cheater. I was having breakfast in the hotel restaurant when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Kate. Jake didn't show up for work yesterday. His boss called the house looking for him. Can you meet me? We met at a coffee shop near Kate's school. She looked better than she had 3 days ago. Still tired, but there was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. He's hiding out at his brother's place in Akron, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Won't answer my calls, won't come home. His boss is furious. What did his boss say? That T-Bold has a strict policy about employee relationships with clients, especially married employees, especially when it results in pregnancy and social media scandals. I grinned. That sounds like a policy violation to me. It gets better. Apparently your wife's company is threatening to pull their account. Something about not wanting to be associated with the drama. That was unexpected. Marta worked for Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm that did business with several advertising agencies. If they were distancing themselves from the scandal, Marta's job was probably in jeopardy too. How are your kids handling it? I asked. Kate's expression softened. Sophie keeps asking why Daddy doesn't live here anymore. Michael thinks it's his fault somehow. Kids always blame themselves. I'm sorry, I didn't want them to get hurt. They were going to get hurt anyway. At least now I know why their father was never around. She stirred her coffee absently. I've been thinking about what you said, about burning his life down. And I want to do more. Over the next hour, Kate outlined her plan. It was thorough, creative, and absolutely devastating. By the time she finished talking, I was genuinely impressed. You're sure you want to do this? I asked. He destroyed my family. He humiliated me in front of everyone I know. He made me question my own sanity for months while he was sneaking around with your wife. Kate's voice was steady, determined. Yeah, I'm sure. Phase 2 of the Turnbull project began that afternoon. Kate had kept meticulous records of Jake's lies over the past 8 months. Every late night at the office that was actually a hotel room. Every business trip that was actually a romantic getaway. Every client dinner that was actually a date with Marta. She compiled it all into a detailed timeline, complete with credit card statements, hotel receipts, and restaurant charges. Then she sent it to Jake's boss, the HR department at T-Bold, and every member of Jake's extended family. But the masterpiece was the email she sent to the Morrison & Associates client list, every business that worked with Marta's company. Dear valued partners, it began, I wanted to make you aware of a situation that may impact your business relationship with Morrison & Associates. It was professional, factual, and utterly damning. Kate laid out the affair, the pregnancy, and the potential conflict of interest issues in calm, measured language. She didn't name Marta directly, but she didn't need to. Anyone who cared enough to investigate would figure it out quickly. The email went out at 3 p.m. on Friday. By 5 p.m., Marta was calling me in tears. "They fired me," she sobbed. "Morrison fired me. They said I was a liability to client relationships." "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not. You and that witch Kate planned this." "Kate's not a witch, Marta. She's a woman whose husband cheated on her with you. If she wants to tell people about it, that's her right." "I'm pregnant. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you got pregnant with your married boyfriend's baby." "How am I supposed to pay for rent, for groceries, for doctor's appointments?" That stopped me. In all my anger and planning, I hadn't really thought about the practical implications for Marta. She'd been depending on her salary and our joint accounts. Now she had neither. "You'll figure it out," I said, but the words felt hollow. "Evan, please. I know I screwed up, but I can't do this alone." For just a moment, I wavered. 18 years of marriage, 2 kids together, all those good times before everything went wrong. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe. Then I remembered the pregnancy test, the hotel receipts, the way she'd laughed about regretting our marriage at the family reunion. "You're not alone," I said. "You have Jake. Jake won't even answer his phone." "Then I guess you picked the wrong guy to have an affair with." I hung up and immediately felt like crap, but not enough to call her back. Saturday morning brought news that Jake had been officially terminated from T-Bold. Kate sent me a screenshot of the termination letter, which cited violation of company policy regarding client relationships and conduct detrimental to the company's reputation. "How does it feel?" Kate texted. "Like justice," I replied. But as I sat in my hotel room, looking out at the Cleveland skyline, I realized something unsettling. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like revenge, and I wasn't sure I was done yet. Jake Turnbull was waiting for me in the hotel parking lot Monday morning. He looked like hell, unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the kind of desperate energy that comes from not sleeping for 3 days straight. His blue Honda was parked sideways across 2 spaces, and he was leaning against the hood like some kind of discount action hero. "We need to talk," he said as I approached my car. "Do we?" I unlocked my door, tossed my briefcase in the back seat. "I thought you were hiding out in Akron. You've destroyed my life." "I didn't destroy anything, Jake. You did that all by yourself when you decided to stick your tool in my wife." He flinched. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" I turned to face him fully. "Enlighten me. Paint me a picture of how an 8-month affair with a married woman just sort of happened accidentally." "We fell in love." The words hung in the morning air like a bad smell. I stared at him for a long moment, then started laughing. Not the bitter, sarcastic laugh I'd been perfecting lately, but genuine from the belly laughter. "You fell in love," I repeated. "That's beautiful, Jake. Really touching. Did you fall in love before or after you found out she was ovulating?" "You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a serial cheater who got caught, and now you're trying to make it sound romantic instead of pathetic." His face flushed red. "At least I didn't spy on my wife like some kind of stalker." "Spy?" I stepped closer. "Jake, you used our joint credit card to buy hotel rooms. That's not spying, that's basic financial literacy. You ruined everything. My job, my marriage, my reputation." "Your reputation?" I laughed again. "Buddy, your reputation was already shot. I just made sure everyone else knew about it." He pushed off from his car, took a step toward me. For a second, I thought he might actually take a swing. Part of me hoped he would. "Stay away from my family," he said instead. "Your family? You mean Kate and the kids you abandoned for my pregnant wife? That family?" "Kate will come around. When this all blows over..." "It's not going to blow over, Jake. Kate's filing for divorce. She's asking for full custody. And based on what I've seen, she's going to get it." That hit home. His shoulders sagged, and for a moment he looked less like a discount action hero and more like what he really was. A middle-aged man who'd thrown away everything that mattered for a few months of excitement. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I want you to disappear from my life and stay disappeared." "And Marta?" I shrugged. Marta's your problem now. You wanted her, you got her. Congratulations." "She's broke. Lost her job because of your little campaign." "Our little campaign? Kate deserves some credit too. She's pregnant with my child. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you let your wife destroy your life on social media." I got in my car, rolled down the window. Here's some free advice, Jake. Next time you want to have an affair, maybe don't do it with someone whose husband works in finance. We're very good at following paper trails. I drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot looking lost. But I wasn't done, not even close. The thing about revenge is that it's hard to let go of. Each small victory makes you hungry for the next one. Jake was unemployed and separated from his family. Marta was jobless and facing single motherhood. By any reasonable standard, justice had been served. But I wasn't feeling reasonable. I was feeling creative. Morrison and Associates had fired Marta, but they'd been surprisingly generous with her severance package, 3 months' salary, plus continuation of her health insurance through the end of the year, probably trying to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit. That severance was going to run out eventually, and when it did, Marta was going to need help. She was going to need Jake, but Jake was hiding out in Akron, dodging his responsibilities like he'd been dodging them for months. Time to flush him out. I drove to Kate's house that evening. It was a modest 2-story in a family-friendly neighborhood, the kind of place where kids rode bikes in the street and neighbors actually talked to each other. Kate's lawn needed mowing, and there were newspapers piling up on the front porch. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt and looking exhausted. "Evan, what are you doing here? I need a favor." She let me in. The house was cluttered but clean, with kids' artwork on the refrigerator and family photos on every surface. In half the photos, Jake had been carefully cut out with scissors. "The kids are at my mother's," Kate said, noticing my glance at the mutilated pictures. "I needed a few days to figure things out." "How are you holding up?" "I'm angry all the time. At him, at her, at myself for being so stupid." She curled up in a corner of the couch. "Some days I want to burn down his brother's house with him in it. Other days I just want him to come home so we can pretend none of this happened." "Which feeling is stronger? The burning down the house one?" I smiled. "Good, because I have an idea." I laid out my plan. It was more elaborate than anything we'd done so far, and it required Kate to do something that would be emotionally brutal. "You want me to what?" she asked when I finished. "Call him. Tell him you want to reconcile. Get him to come home." "Why would I do that?" "Because Marta's going to need financial support soon. And Jake's going to try to weasel out of his responsibilities. But if he thinks there's a chance to save his marriage, he might stick around long enough for us to make sure he can't run away." Kate stared at me for a long moment. "You're asking me to lie to my husband, to pretend I might take him back." "I'm asking you to give him enough rope to hang himself with. What if he actually tries to come back? What if he shows up here expecting forgiveness? Then you get to destroy him in person instead of over the phone." She was quiet for so long, I thought she was going to say no. "Okay," she said finally, "but I want something in return." "What?" "I want to be there when it all comes crashing down. I want to see his face when he realizes he's lost everything." "Deal." Kate called Jake that night. I sat on her couch, listening to her half of the conversation, watching her perform the most difficult acting job of her life. "Jake, it's me. No, I'm not calling to yell at you. I've been thinking about what you said, about falling in love with her. Maybe we should talk." "Yes, I mean in person. Tomorrow night?" "Okay, Jake, I love you too." She hung up and immediately started crying. "I hate myself," she sobbed. "I hate him, I hate her, and I hate myself for doing this. You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because if I don't, he's going to disappear and leave that witch to raise his kid alone, and somehow that feels like letting him win." I handed her a tissue. "He's really coming home? Tomorrow at 7. He sounded so relieved, so grateful." She wiped her eyes. "God, he actually thinks I might forgive him." "Are you sure you can do this?" Kate looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and something that might have been hatred. "Evan, I've been pretending to be happy in my marriage for 3 years, ever since the Jessica Morrison thing. Pretending to forgive him for one more night is going to be easy." The next evening, I parked down the street from Kate's house and waited. Jake's Honda pulled into the driveway at exactly 7 o'clock. He sat in the car for a few minutes, probably working up his nerve, then walked to the front door with a bouquet of flowers. Kate let him in. Through the living room window, I could see them talking. Jake was animated, gesturing with his hands. Kate was nodding, looking sad but receptive. They talked for an hour. Then Jake's phone rang. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see Jake's body language change. He went from hopeful to defensive to angry in the space of 30 seconds. He was pacing now, running his free hand through his hair. Kate was watching him with the expression of someone observing a laboratory experiment. Jake hung up and said something to Kate. She shook her head. He said something else, more urgently. She shook her head again. That's when Jake made his mistake. He grabbed Kate's arm. Not hard, probably not even painfully, but enough to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Kate yanked her arm away and said something that made Jake step back like he'd been slapped. Then she walked to the front door and opened it. Jake stood there for a moment, clearly trying to decide whether to leave or keep arguing. Kate made the decision for him by pointing toward the door. He left. But instead of getting in his car, he stood in the driveway shouting something at the house. That's when I got out of my car and walked over. Problem here, Jake? He spun around. You son of a witch, this was all your idea, wasn't it? What was my idea? Getting Kate to call me, pretending she wanted to work things out, then having Marta call in the middle of it, demanding money for prenatal vitamins. I looked at Kate, who was standing in her doorway with her arms crossed. You didn't tell him? Tell me what? Jake looked back and forth between us. Kate smiled for the first time since I'd met her. That Evan's been staying in a hotel for 2 weeks while his pregnant wife calls him crying every night because she can't afford groceries. Jake's face went white. You set me up. We set you up, I corrected. Kate wanted to see if you'd choose your old family or your new one when push came to shove. And? Jake asked, though he clearly already knew the answer. You chose yourself, Kate said, just like you always do. Jake looked at his wife, soon to be ex-wife, standing in the doorway of their house, and something seemed to break inside him. Kate, please, get off my property, Jake. Don't come back. The kids will be better off without you. She went inside and locked the door. Jake stood in the driveway for another minute, then got in his car and drove away. I walked up to Kate's front door. She opened it before I could knock. How do you feel? I asked. Like I just took out the trash, she said. What about you? I thought about it. Jake was broken. Marta was struggling. Their affair had cost them everything, jobs, families, reputations, futures. I feel like we're just getting started, I said.